This is Kevin F. Pope, here to talk about my favorite Pixar films. Maybe some of what I have to say you've heard before. Maybe you haven't. But this is my list for the top 10 Pixar films.
Number 10, Toy Story 3. The preschool concept was actually originally developed for the first film, but didn't make it in the final movie. What better time to bring this concept back than in the third film, where Andy's becoming an adult, preparing to go to college, and trying to decide on if he wants to keep his old childhood toys or not, or if he's grown too old for them. Also, you have a similar dilemma with the toys and trying to figure out, like, what's going to happen to us? Are we just going to be forgotten, or where do we go from here? Then you also have some new characters introduced, my favorite being Ken. Michael Keaton, so funny as Ken, and his interactions with Barbie and everything with the clothes, and it's super funny.
Number 9, Finding Nemo. This is the movie responsible for giving us one of Pixar's greatest characters, which is Ellen DeGeneres, one of the funniest people alive today, as Dory. While I'll admit there are parts of the film that move a little bit too slow for me, overall it is a beautiful film to watch. The ocean stuff is just so gorgeous to look at. And the story of Marlin trying to find his son Nemo and learning how to be a better dad, and finding out that, well, maybe I'm a little bit overprotective and he's really not able to live his life, and I've got to let him learn. It's a great film.
Number 8, Toy Story 2. In the first film, we get a pretty good idea of who Buzz is, and that he's this brand new toy that every kid wants. In the second film, we get to learn more about Woody's origins, and that he's this toy from this old TV show called Woody's Roundup. Also, the film starts to explore some themes that we further go into in Toy Story 3 of what's going to happen when Andy gets older. I also love the introduction of some of the new characters in this film. I love Joan Cusack as Jessie. She is just so much fun. So much energy. Then we get to learn more about her story as well, and we get to have some feelings towards what happened to her and what she went through as well.
Number 7, Wall-E. My favorite thing about Wall-E is the character of Wall-E. It's so fun to watch him with his curiosity, and he's left alone on the planet. This is our planet. We're not there anymore. And he looks at the stuff that we're used to, the everyday stuff. And he picks up a Rubik's Cube. And he doesn't know that it's a game, it's a toy. He just looks it up and it's like, wow. And yeah, so it's really fun to watch him. And then Eva shows up, and it's fun to watch Wall-E's reaction to how things change with Eva, and that he starts to really grow some feelings for Eva. And it's a sweet little love story. Some people think, oh, you can't have a love story with robots. Who cares? It's a sweet love story. I would say I don't care for the film nearly as much when it goes into outer space. It's not as interesting to me. I didn't really care for the people in the film. They're just kind of But the film works really great with the moments with Wall-E. And one moment I do like in the space is the part where they're floating in space, and it's a beautiful scene. And we enter into what I like to call the interchangeable section of the list. While the films do have a definitive ranking on the list, these are actually interchangeable because with a company like Pixar that makes so many great films, there may be some films you like equally as much. Number 6, Up. What is it about crotchety old guys that makes them so darn lovable? Also, you got the whole concept of adventure is out there, living your life for the adventure, and then discovering that life itself is an adventure. That's a pretty cool message. Also, I can't mention Up without mentioning, I know it's cliche, but the whole married life montage is a great example of how to use storytelling with visuals and no dialogue, and it is just so beautiful and so moving. Number 5, Inside Out. The whole idea of your emotions having personalities is such a cool concept. And then you have the perfect casting of Amy Poehler as Joy. But then you go on the whole journey with her character and how you learn about sadness
and just finding out that all of the emotions are important and not one emotion is necessarily more important than the others. And it's just, who would have thought that you would get so emotional over emotions?
Number 4, The Incredibles. This is a film that came out before the boom of superhero films that we have today. Not that I don't like superhero films, but this is one of the best. You got the family of superheroes, and the superheroes have been in hiding because of lawsuits and government interference, but Mr. Incredible really wants to get back out there as a hero. One of my favorite aspects of the film is the villain. It's really interesting that how this guy used to idolize Mr. Incredible, and Mr. Incredible let him down, and so he turns the other way, and it's like, well, yeah, he becomes a villain. But at the same time, he still geeks out over Mr. Incredible, and it's just so funny hearing the villain going like, oh yeah, that time when I sent out the probe to reach you, and you hid behind that dead corpse, man, I'm still geeking out over that. That was awesome. It's moments like that that just make it more real, because like this guy still idolizes him even though he was betrayed by him, and you don't get that a lot in villains.
Number 3, Toy Story. You got the beginning of the film, and Andy's playing with his toys, creating this scene of a bank robbery, and he's just really having fun with it, doing stuff like taking Slinky Dog and going, well, I brought my attack dog with a built-in force field. Well, I brought my dinosaur who eats force-field dogs. And he's just being a kid, and it's stuff a kid would do. And that's the whole fun of this film. It really captures that child spirit. But it has stuff for adults too. And the whole story with Woody being the top toy and Andy's favorite and everything, and then Buzz comes in and Woody's starting to feel neglected and he's not getting played with as much, and it's starting to get to Woody, and it's just a really, really great film, and the whole relationship that develops between Woody and Buzz as the film progresses.
Number 2, A Bug's Life. Pixar advertised this film as an epic of miniature proportions, and that's exactly what we get in the film. We start out with Flick, the underdog of the ant colony, and he's the outcast, and he thinks that, oh, they're sending me out to go get the warriors so we can fight the grasshoppers who are oppressing us. But they're really sending him off to get rid of him because he causes more problems. Then they're all surprised he comes back with the warriors, and then they're not really warriors, they're circus performers, and this movie has so many good characters. Like, the characters in this film, such an ensemble of great characters. The grasshoppers. Hopper is one of the best Pixar villains. He is so good. Such a great villain. Then you also have like Heimlich the Caterpillar. Who could forget Heimlich? I am Heimlich the Caterpillar. I am a beautiful butterfly. And just, I could go on and on talking about this film. It is so good, and it's actually one of Pixar's most underrated film, but it's really worth another shot to look at. It's a really great film. And number 1 film on my list, Monsters Incorporated. This is a film that's really close to my heart because when the movie first came out, some of my nieces were about the same age as Boo, and Sully's relationship with Boo in the movie is very similar to my relationship with my nieces and now my nephews, and so the movie's really close to me for that reason. But then there's also the whole concept of the doors and the scare floor and the scares powering the city and all of that leading up to, spoiler, but most people have already seen this movie, laughter is more powerful than screams. What a cool concept. I mean, that is really cool. Also, the world they create here, I mean, they have a whole world created of monsters, and you've got all different types and kinds of monsters, and it's just really fun to see them act like regular everyday people, but they're monsters. So they're a little bit different, but they're not much different than us. And so, yeah, Monsters Incorporated, my number 1 favorite Pixar film. And that is The Post Perspective.